Hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk about something many of you may have never heard of. Debt can be both good and bad. That's right, you heard me correctly. Debt is not entirely a bad thing. In fact, there are certain types of debt that, if used wisely, can actually help you become wealthier. I believe many of us grew up hearing that debt is bad, that we must avoid it, and that we should never owe anyone. But the truth is more complex than that. Many wealthy people carry a lot of debt, yet they are rich. Why? Because they carry good debt, not bad debt. Today we're going to understand what good debt is, what bad debt is, and how to use debt to your advantage. First, let's start with definitions. Good debt is debt that helps create income or increases the value of an asset in the future. It's debt that, once invested, brings back more money than what we paid. A simple example is student debt, which gives us knowledge, a degree, and the ability to secure a higher-paying job. Another example is debt taken to purchase rental property, which provides rental income every month, or business expansion loans that grow the business and increase revenue. Bad debt, on the other hand, is debt used to buy things that depreciate, don't generate income, or even make us poorer. Examples include credit card debt spent on luxury items like unnecessary clothes, bags, or shoes, car loans taken for luxury rather than necessity, and debt to fund vacations that only provide temporary happiness. So how do we distinguish between good and bad debt more clearly? The first principle is to look at whether the thing purchased with borrowed money increases or decreases in value over time. If it increases, holds steady, or generates income, that's good debt. If it decreases in value and generates no income, that's bad debt. The second principle is interest rates. Good debt often has low interest rates because banks see it as investment. Bad debt usually carries high interest rates because it's consumption. The third principle is whether you can repay it without disrupting your finances. If you can still save, invest, and have money left after payments, that's fine. But if repayment leaves you with nothing or forces you to borrow more to pay old debts, that's dangerous. The fourth principle is necessity. If borrowing is necessary and rational, it may be good debt. But if it's simply to satisfy desire, it's usually bad debt. Let's look at some examples of different types of debt. A mortgage can be good debt if you buy a home to live in and save on rent, buy a home to rent out and earn regular income, purchase at a reasonable price within your means, and get a low interest rate with suitable repayment terms. But a mortgage can turn into bad debt if you buy a house that's too expensive, leaving you with too little money, if you purchase multiple properties without a plan, or if you buy at peak price only for the value to fall, leaving you underwater. Student loans can be good debt if the course you study adds value to you, helps you secure a good job with a higher salary, and you can repay after graduation, making it a long-term investment. But student loans can be bad debt if you study a program unrelated to a career just for fun, if tuition is extremely high without improving job opportunities, or if you graduate but never work in that field. Car loans are often debated, but for the most part, cars are bad debt because they depreciate quickly. However, if the car is used for work to increase income or save significant time, it may be acceptable. The key is not to buy a car beyond your means or take on overly long repayment terms. Credit card debt is always bad if you don't pay the full balance every month. Interest rates are extremely high, and purchases are usually on depreciating items that don't generate income. But if you use a credit card for convenience and pay in full each month, it's not really debt. Business loans can be good debt if taken to expand a growing business, when returns exceed interest costs, and when you have a clear plan for how the money will be used. But they are bad debt if taken to patch a failing business, if there is no plan, or if profits can't cover interest. Now let's look at how wealthy people use debt. Wealthy people are not afraid of debt. They know how to choose the right debt. They borrow at low interest rates to invest in things with higher returns. For example, borrowing at 3% interest to buy a condo that generates 6% rental yield, earning a 3% profit. or taking out a business loan where the business returns 15% while interest costs 7%, leaving an 8% profit. The wealthy use leverage, the multiplying power of debt, to use small amounts of money to acquire high-value assets. The poor, however, use debt the wrong way, borrowing to buy depreciating items, paying high interest, and sinking deeper into poverty. Warning signs that you have too much bad debt include when most of your income goes towards debt with nothing left, when you borrow new debt to pay old debt and enter a debt cycle, when you're constantly stressed about money and can't sleep, when you avoid creditors and won't answer calls, and when your relationship suffers because of debt. If you see these signs, stop immediately. Don't take on more debt. How do you manage bad debt? First, stop making new debt. Cut up credit cards and stop borrowing. Second, gather all debt information, including balances, interest, and due dates. Third, prioritize repayment. Either pay off the highest interest debt first or the smallest balance first. Fourth, cut unnecessary expenses and redirect that money to debt repayment. Fifth, increase income through side jobs, selling things, or any other way. Sixth, negotiate with creditors to lower interest or restructure payments. Seventh, consolidate debts into one with lower interest. Eighth, seek advice from financial advisors or debt help organizations. Smart debt management includes having a clear plan before borrowing, knowing exactly what the money is for and how repayment will work, borrowing only what is necessary, comparing interest rates from different lenders, reading all terms carefully before signing, keeping an emergency fund for unexpected events, never borrowing for lifestyle or appearances, always paying on time, and regularly reviewing debt to see if refinancing is beneficial. There are also common misconceptions about debt. The first is that all debt is bad. Wrong. Some debt is an investment. The second is that rich people don't have debt. Wrong. Many wealthy people have lots of debt, but it's good debt. The third is that you must clear all debt before investing. Not always. Sometimes it's better to do both simultaneously. The fourth is that a house is always an asset. Not true. It can be a liability if it doesn't generate income. The fifth is that longer repayment terms are always better because monthly payments are lower. Wrong. Longer terms mean more total interest paid. Teaching children about debt is also important. Teach them to distinguish needs from wants. Teach them that borrowing has a cost, interest. Teach them to think before buying. Can it wait? Is it necessary? Teach them to save first before buying, rather than borrowing. But if they must borrow, teach them how to choose good debt. Before we finish, I have a challenge for you. If you've listened this far, do these 3 things this week. First, if you have debt, write down all of it on paper and separate it into good debt and bad debt. Second, calculate how much interest you paid this month in total and think about what you could have done with that money if you had no debt. Third, if you're considering borrowing, ask yourself these 3 questions. Is this good debt or bad debt? Can I realistically repay it? And do I have alternatives that don't require borrowing? Doing these 3 challenges will help you better understand your debt and make smarter debt decisions. Finally, debt is not the enemy. If used wisely, it's a powerful tool. But if used incorrectly, debt becomes a tool that destroys our lives. Most financially successful people know how to use debt wisely. They are not afraid of it, but they respect it, understand it, and use it to their advantage. Learning to distinguish good debt from bad debt will give us a better chance at building wealth. Thank you for listening. I hope this episode helps shift your perspective on debt and inspires you to use it wisely. As always, if today's content was useful, I invite you to follow this channel because I still have many more topics on finance, investing, and debt management to share with you. Following the channel ensures you won't miss valuable content that could change your financial life, and it also motivates me to keep creating. If you know someone struggling with debt or wants to learn more about money, please share this with them. Good knowledge is meant to be shared. Subscribe now. It's free and absolutely worth it. And don't forget to do the challenge. See you in the next episode, and may you all use debt wisely.